everyone, and welcome back to my channel where I talk about CICs and grant funding. So in this video we're going to be talking about youth projects. So you might be somebody who's interested in starting some kind of youth project as a business, an independent business, self-employed or CIC. So I'm going to run down my 3 top tips for how to get set up and started and get paid to do some kind of youth activity in the community. But before I get into that, please hit the subscribe button so you can keep up to date with all my tips and tricks when it comes to grant funding and community interest companies. So that all said, let's jump in. So let's talk about youth work. So traditionally, if somebody wanted to work with young people, they would think about being a youth and community worker or a teacher. Now, of course, in the modern age, it's very difficult now in terms of budget cuts and all the cuts to our local authorities. We don't really have the youth clubs that we used to have like 20 years ago. So that means that there isn't so many paid jobs in the youth sector in the community. Also, many teachers become disheartened, overworked, underpaid, and feel disgruntled that they're not really doing sort of the passionate side of working with young people that they may like. So lots of people have started their own community interest companies working with young people. Now, these could take various different shapes and forms. Some people might do sports work in the community, doing like a local sports club, youth club, football club. And then other people might do something around creative arts or education or mentoring of young people, steering young people away from crime, trying to keep them in school. There's all sorts of ways to work with young people in a beneficial way. Also, there's a massive growth in out of school education. I mean, home ed kids. So home educated children is something that's really taken off since the pandemic. Many parents have realised they can legally educate their children at home and take them out of mainstream education. As a result, there are lots of CICs popping up in the community, offering different things to home educated children. So you might think, well, this all sounds great, but how on earth would you get paid and how would you get started? So here are my 3 tips to how to get started. Tip number 1, set up a community interest company. So community interest company is a bit like a charity. It can apply for grant funding, but it can also, like a regular LTD business, also make some profits and earn its own money as well. So it is a profit-making company, so you can pay yourself within that. Now, directors do not get paid, but you can pay yourself as a worker within your CIC. So I'll come on to pay in a little bit later in this video, but first of all, yes, you would set up a CIC, you would do that through Companies House, you would set up your bank account and start to apply for funding. Now, the different grant fundings that you can get if you have a CIC related to youth work could be Children in Need. Children in Need is a fantastic grant funder. So they have a small pot which is up to 10,000 a year, which is great to get you started. And the great thing about it is when you get that, you get it for 3 years. That means you get 10,000 for 3 years before you need to write another application. Now, I get that myself, and also I'm in my second 3-year round, and they managed to do it so it was seamless. So I did my first 3 years, I applied before the end, and then I got my next 3 years. So the great thing about Children in Need is it really gives you good sustainability long term when you're running some kind of youth activity in the community. So on top of Children in Need, you've also got the Community Fund, which is a national lottery fund. Now, this can be for 10,000 again, and they do have larger pots, and Children in Need also have larger pots as well. But I'm going to just talk about the smaller pots because they are much easier to get. You don't have to match fund them, and they give those out to CICs, and it's just so much easier. So the community fund with the lottery could maybe support you and your staffing costs or running costs, any materials, any venue hire, advertising, anything like that. So it's a great pot to get, and it's fairly simple. The application process is about 3 months, so you could have that in your bank account within 3 or 4 months. If you're doing anything with creative arts, then Arts Council England is for you. So they also do these in Scotland and Wales as well. But with the Arts Council, you can apply for up to 30,000 for a 3-year project, but you can do smaller. So I tend to run projects for a year for 15,000 and then just apply every year. So that works for me because I like to change the projects that I do. Now, Arts Council is fantastic. They really want you to teach skills to young people, to really grow and give them opportunities to experience art and creative performance work or visual arts, or all different types, photography, anything really, music as well. So in fact, they're actually developing a music hub application at the moment. So I think that they're going to be doing a lot more when it comes to music projects. So those are my top 3 funders. So as well as funding, you can also generate your own income once you've got a CIC. So what I mean by this is you could sell your service. So say you're running a sports project or an art workshop or whatever it is that you're doing, your activity, you could sell that on in the community. So for instance, parents might pay you to run a workshop, or the local authority might. So the police will often release funds to anything that's related to antisocial behaviour or reducing crime in young people or early intervention work. Likewise, the local authority will pay projects to run education work, as long as it's something that isn't something that the schools should be doing, then that's something you could get. So a youth club, for instance. And also you can approach other organisations that are established that have budgets and grant funds that may pay you to come in and do a talk or do a workshop. So for example, I've gone to youth clubs before and they've paid me £200-300 to go in and do an actual activity for an evening. Likewise, I've had the home ed parents approach their local authority and pay me up to £200 to do a 3-hour art session with a one-to-one with their young person. So that's an example how the home ed kids can access money from their local authority to do certain workshops. Now, this is quite difficult for them to get, but things are progressing and local authorities are recognising that they do need to release some funds to home ed kids. And this brings out a huge different market now for education, alternative education in the community. So that all said, how do you pay yourself? So when you are working, as I said, in a CIC, as a director, you don't get paid because that's just your board, that's just your directors. They don't get paid. You don't have shareholders. You don't pay dividends in a CIC. That's not allowed. But you can get paid for your work. So say you are running a workshop or a project, you would put in there your hourly costs. So your sessional rate. So say I'm running a workshop for an afternoon, I would invoice as a self-employed person or through my own LTD, I would invoice my CIC. My CIC would then pay me to do that activity. So for instance, say you're running a National Lottery funded project, say the award is 10,000 and you're going to be doing, as part of that, just a series of workshops. So it's quite fine to pay yourself, say 9,000 of that. And then have 1,000 that you'd be using for materials or venue hire. So the Arts Council would pay around £349 a day for a workshop to be done or some kind of art activity for a day. That's their day rate. So £349 is what the Arts Council expects you to be paying anybody who's doing any kind of arts work with you. So you can see there that you have a structure where the CIC brings in the money and then it pays you as a self-employed person or through your LTD, which you could also set up. So it pays you to do the work, okay? And also factor in that as a self-employed person or through your LTD, you would obviously run your own expenses through there. So there's other ways you can save money. So say for instance, I work from home quite a lot doing preparational work, obviously admin work. So for instance, I can claim on my taxes for some of my utilities. You can claim a little bit back there. Also any kind of car costs, mileage, you can claim around 80% of car costs through your self-employed accounts, also with your LTD. Also towards phone costs or any kind of electronics and also materials, as you can see here. So the great thing about materials is obviously you can get that all through your grant funding, and a lot of it can be very expensive to buy. So it's really nice to be able to get it all up front through a grant fund, and then you've got it, and then you can start running your workshops or whatever it is that you're doing. So a couple more things I want to mention that you need to know if you're going to be doing some kind of community work with children is you do need to be DBS checked. I know that sounds weird. You might think, well, why would I do that when I know that I don't? Who are you proving it to? But you do need it for your grant funders, okay? So yes, you still need to be DBS checked, even though you're not part of a bigger organisation. Sometimes youth clubs or people that hire me will ask to see my DBS. So you do need that, and you also need up-to-date safeguarding training. So you need to update your safeguarding training every year, especially if you're going to be getting children in need funding. They're quite up on that. and you can do your safeguarding training online. And obviously you can add those costs of your DBS check or your safeguarding training into a application bid, so that is paid for within the project grants. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope that inspires a lot of you to think outside the box about what great activities you could be doing with young people in the community and how you can get paid for it and start a fantastic, wonderful career creating your own projects. So I absolutely love it. I've been doing it for 10 years and I've run all kinds of projects, music projects. I do a lot of art as well. And I just absolutely love it. You can do grassroots work without having all the bureaucracy and the stuff that goes with having a teaching job or a youth and community worker job where you're working for big organisations. You can just come and go as you please and pay yourself a good wage for that, a much better wage than if you were doing a traditional job. And you can also take time off when you want, so you can run a project for a certain amount of months and then maybe take some time off. You can also run several different projects at the same time. As long as you've got the manpower to do that and you're able to manage everything, then you can have several different projects running at the same time, and that maximises then your income. So if you'd like any more advice, please subscribe to the channel first, but also jump over to my website because on there I have a how to set up a CIC and get funded in 4 months course, and also have a membership, and with the membership you can ask me any questions and I'd be there to mentor you through your CIC journey. I also do write application forms for people, so you can ask me to write your Children in Need, your lottery or your Arts Council applications. Give me any questions on my website if you have any, if you want to see if your project's viable or not as well. Always happy to help. Thank you.